This series is dedicated to Brother Steve Coakley.
And in fact, I always thought that the one who spreads the fear is as guilty of perpetrating the negativity as the one who allegedly does it.
In the previous episode, we discussed the new Negro philosophy that grew out of Harlem and its connections to the Black Power and civil rights movements of the 50s and 60s. We also highlighted some of the key players in Harlem and how their roles may have began in Harlem but found their ways to the national stage. Adam Clayton Powell was one of these key players mentioned. His voice was recognized as the most militant persona in politics, and he was endorsed and a close associate of Malcolm X. And as Malcolm once put it, the Harlem Negro is the most intellectually sophisticated Negro in the country. This, presumably, was contrary to every other type of Negro in the country, but especially the Southern Negro, who was seen by many urban Negroes as weak, docile, slow, uneducated, and barely out of the shackles of slavery. Simply put, Northern Negroes look down upon the Southern Negroes. This has more elements than just the Mason-Dixon beef. The philosophical dichotomy between the Northern and Southern Negro would set the stage for the Civil Rights Movement, but ultimately, it would be in the South where the biggest battles were fought. In this episode, we detail the era between Reconstruction and the Civil Rights Movement with a specific focus on the Southern Negro as opposed to the Northern Negro or the Harlem Negro. We also detail a brief history of the Ku Klux Klan and how they played a key role in the Civil Rights Movement of the 50s and 60s. In comparison between the Northern and Southern Negroes, the Northern Negroes mostly had Southern roots, but had moved to the northern cities following Reconstruction, leading up to the Great Migration. The majority of the so-called Black population that lived in the South were actually enslaved Indigenous people who had been conquered throughout colonization. These Indigenous people would later be classified as African Americans, without any evidence that these millions of people were ever connected to the transatlantic slave trade. The presumed African origins of colored people in the South have more of a fictional basis than a reliable historical foundation, as we have mentioned in several past episodes. The so-called African blood is almost always Indian blood. There is no documented evidence in the transatlantic slave trade that could account for the overall population of so-called Blacks in the South. This is the biggest hole in their African theory. How did all of these Africans arrive into the Deep South? Through what port did they arrive? New Orleans? Biloxi? Did they arrive in Charleston and then trek across the entire continent? What series of voyages recorded in the transatlantic slave trade database documents the over 4 million Blacks in the South originating from Africa? These are just a few questions we will attempt to answer. Conditions for colored people in the South were always highlighted by a myriad of government and private schemes looking to steal indigenous land. This ultimately led to the skepticism Americans had in dealing with the government, which is also a primary reason why some indigenous people didn't want their children educated in the newly established Negro public schools, looking to push the agenda for Black literacy. They were by and large untrusting of the government, especially in the South. But if you fast forward a couple of generations, Negroes in the North with Southern roots would soon be looking for the government to enforce their civil rights. In general, this idea may be a little dangerous for the Southern Negro. To petition the government for rights? Brother, what you talking about? Should I then go petition massa for a 401k and dental? A dangerous proposition for a Mississippian, fresh off the chain. However, in the South, the Klan was its own government. You've heard the legend about how Black people have fought and died for their chance to vote. The popular opinion was that the Klan was actually created to suppress the Black vote. The first real post-Civil War movement to re-disenfranchise colored people was this anti-voting movement inspired by the Ku Klux Klan, literally designed to subvert the Republican Party, especially the participation of so-called Blacks within politics in general. At the time, the Republican Party was really the only party a so-called colored man had a chance to have a platform in. Indeed, the Klan is a political group, although some historians may push back and say that the Klan really started as an odd secret society of jackass weirdos, running around pulling Steve-O-type shenanigans and pranks on unsuspecting citizens. The Klan has many veiled faces. Yes, it is a political group. Yes, it is a secret society. Yes, it is a militia. Yes, it is a terrorist organization. Yet the faces of the Klan have evolved over the time since its creation. From selling tickets and photos at lynchings like it was a main event boxing match, to being suppressed by the military and nearly disbanded, to being popularized in American culture in the first blockbuster movie of all time, to being held as the redeemers of white purity and the protector of the precious snow bunny from the Black boa constrictor. The Klan has many faces under that hood. There was an underlying sexual vulnerability that permeated the cracker Klan consciousness. They were obsessed with Black dick, even more than a Kardashian or a ratchet pinky toe or even Langston Hughes. The Klan loved themselves some coon cock. They loved to chop off a colored man's dick, put it in a jar, and show it to all their friends, like the true weirdos they are. The first generation Cave Klan embodied all of the qualities of a plantation villain, the definition of DWBs. Following the Civil War, as county and state political structures began to develop across the South, voting became an important civil act for the newly enfranchised Negroes, particularly in rural areas where Negroes would outnumber whites. Pulling together votes for the colored interest was a serious threat to the small-town white expectations for establishment. In a local election that could be decided by less than 24 votes, certain whites found it strategic, necessary, and even downright fun to terrorize so-called colored people at the polls, essentially using violence to intimidate voters to suppress votes that would most likely be cast for the Republican candidate. Quote, Election Day riot of 1868, 14 Negroes wounded and 1 killed. This riot took place in Asheville, North Carolina. When Black men showed up to vote in downtown Asheville on November 3rd, 1868, members of the Klan gathered at the polling place. The Klan, a white supremacist terrorist organization, had entered Western North Carolina in the spring with the goal of preventing Black men from participating in elections. Black men had been registered to vote with the help of the Freedmen's Bureau, a federal organization set up to help the South transition from slavery to freedom for Blacks. When some of the black men cheered Republican Congressman Alexander H. Jones, a white man, as he passed by, white men reputed to be Klan members attacked. According to one account, in a very few minutes, the rebels fired about 40 times into them. 14 black men were wounded, and one, James Smith, was killed. Jones fled and hid in Raleigh. So this is just one of several accounts of the Klan actually coming into the polling place and intimidating black voters to the point where they started shooting at black voters and one was killed. This was their mode of operation throughout the South and throughout the election of 1868. Another method to the Klan madness born out of their obsession for black genitalia was fabricating the myth of the renegade black rapist. This was their typical MO used to justify mob violence and taking the law into their own hands. But this should be no surprise. The organization was headed by one of the top scumbags in American history. Nathan Bedford Forrest was a Freemason, a well-known slave trader, and a Confederate war hero to the racist Southerner. In April 1864, the unit under his command massacred a group of Union troops who had surrendered at Fort Pillow in a mixed unit of black and white soldiers. His men killed the majority of the colored men in the unit. Men who were kneeling to surrender were forced to their feet and shot, while others were beaten, tortured, nailed to boards, and burned alive. Those who tried to escape were shot in the back. Forrest made it a point to treat black soldiers with more brutality, as a warning to the Union Army about using colored troops. Northerners saw him as a slave-driving war criminal. Southerners saw him as a hero. This led to him being chosen as the first Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan, even without the knowledge that he had been nominated or chosen. Forrest was also a key figure in the Battle of Selma, which he lost a century before Bloody Sunday. Forrest and his men surrendered in Selma, but the gentlemen of the Union Army decided not to shoot them in the face or torture them, as they had done at the Fort Pillow massacre. His time in the Klan began around 1867. The group had already been created the previous year and found him qualified to be its first Grand Wizard. Killing niggas on a whim was his top qualification, a character trait Confederate cavemen could stand behind. He quickly began terrorizing Negroes, pillaging small black communities at night during his ghost masquerades. The Klan, for the first time, had a national identity. Until then, it had been mostly an unorganized, unconnected band of white supremacist pockets in the South, comprised of different dens of Confederate sympathizers. Now, they had a leader and a face. The first iteration of the Klan was like the extreme version of White Boys Gone Wild, essentially ransacking unsuspecting colored victims with violent, reckless abandon without consequence. This era of violence followed the assassination of Lincoln in 1865 and was in the wake of the 1868 presidential election between Democrat Horatio Seymour and Republican Ulysses S. Grant. During the election, squads of dirty white boys harassed, terrorized, kidnapped, beat, tortured, and even murdered Americans at the polls. Forrest would also campaign himself during the election. On the recruiting trail looking to grow White Hood membership, he traveled all over the South in preparation for their lynch mob shenanigans, holding hang a nigga pep rallies in front of calcified crowds of thousands. By the election in 1868, there were over 1,000 incidents, including the attack of Americans at the polls by the KKK and other splinter cells of white supremacy. There was an inherent, yet fundamental hatred among Confederate whites and their feelings toward Negroes that went far beyond just racism. Most of the socially prominent men in the South were former Confederate soldiers who had just lost the war and the right to hold public office. But most of the voting socially active Negroes were veterans of the victorious Union Army. It was already bad enough they lost the war, but losing the election to a nappy headed tar baby made them Confederate crackers downright saltine. In the areas where colored participation was more active, so were the pink pillagers. In 1866, in Memphis and New Orleans, two cities with significantly higher populations of freedmen, after the war, there were scenes of massacre and riots. In both cases, the police departments in Memphis and New Orleans were involved in the perpetuation of terrorism against its colored citizens. In Memphis, Negroes were destructively pushed out of the city, resulting in a significant reduction of the Memphis Negro population. Men were tortured, beaten, and killed. Women were raped. Homes, schools, and churches were burned. But there was also another underlying factor to this bad blood: the hate Irish immigrants had for the newly enfranchised Americans. The Irish were just getting their foot in the American door, as most Irish non indentured servants were first or second generation, and now their jobs are getting taken away by the newly ascended Negroes. The Memphis Police Department was notoriously corrupt and routinely threatened and harassed colored Union soldiers. Nearly all police officers in Memphis at the time were Irish immigrants. These Mickey Fickies got their willies wet tormenting Negroes, so they took special exception to seeing Negroes in uniform wielding firearms who would at times intervene when the police would senselessly beat citizens in the streets. The consequence of this tension between Irish police officers and black Union soldiers led to the 1866 massacre. Other areas were also affected by other forms of mob violence. Resentful rebels ran roughshod and created the conditions of chaos, danger, and uncertainty that people hadn't experienced since before the war. Because now the recently emancipated people who are being threatened now have arms. This always instilled within whites fear of black retribution. If the frontier west of the Mississippi was called the Wild West, then this was the savage South. And if the whites weren't afraid of Negro insurrection, they were under the constant threat of the wild black rapist and his big black snake that'll make even the purest white woman moan.
Get your ass back in my house.
And them good old boys would stop at nothing to keep those mangy moon cricket claws off Bessie's milky white skin. And if that meant they had to fabricate rape narratives, so be it. Them boys were running wild. So wild that after Grant won the presidency, he sent the military down south to corral the Klan and their cronies. This act is monumental for being possibly the first time the American government intervened against whites for the protection of so-called blacks. After the military was sent by Grant, the Klan was thwarted, but was not completely destroyed. The members were still out there pulling stunts, but their power had been greatly diminished. This marks the end of the first KKK era. However, the Klan would rise again. Who were these so-called black people being terrorized by the Klan? The conventional belief was that all these black people who had formerly been enslaved were Africans. But was that true? For context, we are referring to the so-called colored people from Tennessee, Alabama, Mississippi, Arkansas, and Louisiana. The most pressing question would be, if all of these so-called black people were transported from Africa, by what means did they reach the Deep South? Is there any evidence in the transatlantic slave trade database that the number of people representative of the black population in the Deep South went through any of the ports in that area? The largest slave trading port in this area was New Orleans. And there are a few others. But to put these statistics in context, according to the database, less than 10,000 Africans disembarked at the port of New Orleans throughout the entirety of the slave trade, from as early as 1719 to 1860. But the black population in the South was in the millions. Are we really supposed to believe that the millions of Negroes in the Deep South were descended from just a couple of thousand Africans recorded in the database? As mentioned previously, the largest slave ports were on the east coast of the United States. Places like Maryland, Virginia, and New York had the highest number of slaves entering and exiting through their ports. And cities like Charleston and Savannah were the closest major ports in the Deep South. And yet that location is nowhere close to the millions of so-called Negroes along the Mississippi. And to assume that a shipment of Africans could arrive at Charleston and then trek over 1,000 miles across the country, over the Appalachian Mountains, and to the river by slave traders is an asinine, Assa 10, Assa 11 assumption. These people who were enslaved had always lived on the land, but were eventually pushed out, first by the French, prior to the French-Indian War, and then later the British, and then the Americans, after the Revolution. The majority of these people enslaved in the Deep South were descendants of the tribes along the Mississippi, like the Natchez, the Chitimacha, the Choctaw, the Creek, and Chickasaw, just to name a few. Any scholastic citation that accounts these people along the Mississippi River as African is patently false and cannot be substantiated by any historical documentation or even in the transatlantic slave trade database. The Klan would rise again after the release of quite possibly the first blockbuster movie of all time, The Birth of a Nation, by D.W. Griffith. The movie glorifies the Klan and promoted the idea that Klansmen were heroes protecting the sanctity of white purity from the savage Negro. The picture has been described by film critics as possibly the most racist movie of all time, but also one of the greatest works of early cinematography, a masterpiece of racism. Racism and politics are a central theme of the movie. But also, another recurring theme is the renegade Negro rapist. In the movie, Southern whites are portrayed as being unfairly treated by the newly installed Union government, promoting the idea that the poor whites were denied the right to vote while blacks unfairly stuffed the ballot box. Welcome back to Charlatan's Web. Quote, The Birth of a Nation is a 1915 American silent epic drama film directed by D.W. Griffith and starring Lillian Gish. The screenplay is adapted from Thomas Dixon Jr.'s 1905 novel and play, The Klansman. Griffith co-wrote the screenplay with Frank E. Woods and produced the film with Harry Aitken. The Birth of a Nation is a landmark of film history, lauded for its technical virtuosity. It is the first non-serial American 12-reel film ever made. Its plot, part fiction and part history, chronicles the assassination of Abraham Lincoln by John Wilkes Booth and the relationship of two families in the Civil War and Reconstruction eras over the course of several years. The pro-Union Northern Stonemans and the pro-Confederacy Southern Camerons. It was originally shown in two parts, separated by an intermission, and it was the first American-made film to have a musical score for an orchestra. It helped pioneer close-ups and fade-outs, and it includes a carefully staged battle sequence with hundreds of extras, made to look like thousands. It came with a 13-page souvenir program. It was the first motion picture to be screened inside the White House, viewed there by President Woodrow Wilson, his family, and members of his cabinet. Woodrow Wilson, by the way, a staunch racist and supporter of the Ku Klux Klan. The film was controversial even before its release and has remained so ever since. It has been called the most controversial film ever made in the United States and the most reprehensibly racist film in Hollywood history. The film has been denounced for its racist depiction of African Americans. The film portrays its black characters, many of whom are played by white actors in blackface, as unintelligent and sexually aggressive toward white women. The Ku Klux Klan, a white supremacist far-right hate group, is portrayed as a heroic force that protects white women and maintains white supremacy. Popular among white artists nationwide upon its release, the film's success was both a consequence and a contributor to racial segregation throughout the United States. The film's success was both a consequence and a contributor to racial segregation throughout the United States. In response to the film's depictions of black people in Civil War history, African Americans across the United States organized and protested. In Boston and other localities, black leaders in the NAACP spearheaded an unsuccessful campaign to have it banned on the basis that it inflamed racial tensions and could incite violence. And this is in 1915. So this is one of the first national campaigns that drew attention to the NAACP. It was also denied release in the state of Ohio and the cities of Chicago, Denver, Pittsburgh, St. Louis, and Minneapolis. Griffith's indignation at efforts to censor or ban the film motivated him to produce Intolerance the following year. A 2023 study found that screenings of the film during its original release were linked to a spike in racist violence. So when them white boys saw this movie, they was ready to go turn up. The Birth of a Nation was a massive commercial success across the nation, grossing far more than any previous motion picture, and it profoundly influenced both the film industry and American culture. Adjusted for inflation, the film remains one of the highest grossing films ever made. It has been acknowledged as an inspiration for the rebirth of the Ku Klux Klan, which we will talk about coming up, which took place only a few months after its release. It popularized the Klan so much, there was a rebirth in membership, which took place only a few months after its release. In 1992, the Library of Congress deemed the film culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant and selected it for preservation in the National Film Registry. So the main point that I want to make here is to show that the release of Birth of a Nation, initially labeled The Klansman, actually caused a spike in membership and the revival or rebirth of the Klan. So right now, I want to go over a quick synopsis of the movie so you understand what the movie's about, and then we're going to look at a couple of scenes from the movie, as long as YouTube doesn't shut the video down. I believe since this movie's in the National Film Registry, I should be able to use it in my video. Part 1, Civil War of the United States. Phil, the elder son of the Stonemans, a northern family, falls in love with Margaret Cameron, the daughter of a southern family, during a visit to the Cameron estate in South Carolina. There, Margaret's brother Ben idolizes a picture of Elsie Stoneman, Phil's sister. When the Civil War arrives, the young men of both families enlist in their respective armies. The younger Stoneman and two of the Cameron brothers die in combat. Meanwhile, a black militia attacks the Cameron home and is routed by Confederate soldiers who save the Cameron women. Oh, those heroic Confederate soldiers, leading to the final charge at the Siege of Petersburg. Ben Cameron earns the nickname of the Little Colonel, but is also wounded and captured. He is then taken to a Union military hospital in Washington, D.C. During his stay at the hospital, he learns that he will be hanged. They took him to the hospital to hang him. Seems like a waste of a hospital visit. Working there as nurse is Elsie Stallman. What? Elsie Stallman is a nurse up in that piece? Whose picture he has been carrying. He's been carrying this whole picture the whole time. And she just happened to be there at the hospital. Serendipity, my Nick. Elsie takes Cameron's mother, who traveled there to tend to her son and to see Abraham Lincoln. Mrs. Cameron persuades him to pardon Ben. After Lincoln's assassination, his conciliatory post-war policy expires with him. Elsie's father and other radical Republicans are determined to punish the South. Oh shit. Part 2, Reconstruction. Stoneman and his protege Silas Lynch, a psychopathic mulatto, head to South Carolina. So later on, we'll find out the character Silas Lynch is based off R.H. Gleaves. And remember, R.H. Gleaves was the prominent South Carolina free colored man who was also a prominent Prince Hall Freemason. And in particular, the state of South Carolina is what this film focuses on, as well as the focus of the Klan violence during the late 1860s, in which Ulysses S. Grant had to send the military. He sent the military to South Carolina. Reason being, we had all of these free colored men and mulattoes and some black men who had actually been elected to positions such as lieutenant governor and Congress. R.H. Gleaves is being portrayed in this film by the character Silas Lynch, a quote-unquote psychopathic mulatto. Part of this character is based off Alonzo Ranzier, who was also a politician, lieutenant governor, and or congressman, similar to R.H. Gleaves. And let's not forget, these men in South Carolina and Mississippi and other states in the South were elected at least 50 years before Adam Clayton Powell was elected to represent Harlem. Stoneman and his protege, Silas Lynch, a psychopathic mulatto, head to South Carolina to observe the implementation of Reconstruction policies. During the election in which Lynch is elected lieutenant governor, black people stuff the ballot boxes, while many white people are denied the vote. Huh, did that happen? The newly elected members of the South Carolina legislature were mostly black. Inspired by observing white children pretending to be ghosts to scare black children, Ben fights back by forming the Ku Klux Klan. What? Inspired by white children pretending to be ghosts to scare black children? That's a hell of an inspiration. There are a few schools of thought about where exactly the white hood came from, and it seems as though in the early days of the Klan they were just using sheets, and at some point it became a pointed hood. So honestly, the costume that the hood fits best with is the capriote, a Christian pointed hat of conical form that is used in Spain and Hispanic countries by members of a confraternity of penitents, particularly those of the Catholic Church. It is part of the uniform of such brotherhoods, including the Nazarenos and the Farisios. Oh, really? The Nazarenos and the Farisios. Capriote are worn by penitents so that attention is not drawn toward themselves as they repent, but instead to God. So you mean to tell me a nigga with a big pointed white, blue, green hood over his face with the eyes cut out is meant not to draw attention to himself? So the capriote is like the closest thing to the Klan hood. But you know, we'll go with D.W. Griffith. Inspired by white children pretending to be ghosts to scare black children. As a result, Elsie breaks up with him. Oh, okay. All right. Oh, you want to do that? Well, I'm going to break up with you. All right. Oh, so kids inspire you, nigga? The little niggas is inspiring you and shit, but I can't inspire you? Nigga, I'm out. While going off alone into the woods to fetch water, Flora Cameron is followed by Gus, a freedman and a soldier, who is now a captain. Gus says that he desires to marry Flora. Uninterested, she rejects him, but Gus keeps insisting. Frightened, she flees into the forest pursued by Gus. Trapped on a precipice, Flora threatens to jump if he comes any closer. When he does, she leaps to her death. While looking for Flora, Ben sees her jump and holds her as she dies. He then carries her body to the Cameron home. In response, the Klan hunts down Gus, tries him, finds him guilty, lynches him, and delivers his corpse to the home of Silas Lynch. After discovering Gus's murder, Lynch orders a crackdown on the Klan. He also secures the passing of legislation allowing mixed race marriages. Oh shit now. There's a legal loophole for Betsy to get her white dress all dirty and brown. Dr. Cameron is arrested for possessing Ben's Klan regalia, now considered a capital crime. Oh, Silas Lynch wasn't playing. He is rescued by Phil Stoneman and some of his black servants. What? The Stonemans came to... Whoa. Together with Margaret Cameron, they flee. When their wagon breaks down, they make their way through the woods to a small hut that is home to 2 former Union soldiers who agreed to hide them. Congressman Stoneman, Elsie's father, leaves to avoid being connected with Lynch's crackdown. Elsie, learning of Dr. Cameron's arrest, visits Lynch to plead for his release. Lynch, who lusts after Elsie, tries to force her to marry him. Oh shit! We've got the psychopathic mulatto lusting for a white woman. Lynch, who lusts after Elsie, tries to force her to marry him, which causes her to faint. Oh no, not Silas Lynch, no. Stoneman returns, causing Elsie to be placed in another room. At first, Stoneman is happy when Lynch says he wants to marry a white woman. But he is then angered when Lynch says he wishes to marry Elsie. She breaks the window and cries for help, getting the attention of undercover Klanman spies. Oh shit. The Klan gathered together with Ben leading them. Fucking Ben Cameron, bro. Ride in to gain control of the town. When the news about Elsie reaches Ben, he and others go to her rescue. Lynch, the psychopathic mulatto based off R.H. Cleaves, is captured while his militia attacks the hut where the Camerons are hiding. However, the Klansmen, with Ben at their head, save them. Aww. The next election day, black men find a line of mounted and armed Klansmen outside their homes and are intimidated into not voting. Margaret Cameron marries Phil Stoneman, and Elsie Stoneman marries Ben Cameron. Oh. And I guess them niggas live happily ever after. End quote. Charlatan's Web. Now that we got the gist of the movie, let's take a look at a couple of these scenes, because they are fucking hilarious. To get an idea of the plot, we're just going to go through a couple of scenes because this shit is hilarious. It's kind of like a history lesson and a comedy lesson all at the same time. Also a film lesson. So in chronological order, we're going to go through some of these scenes in the movie. And you'll notice that there'll be a lot of characters in blackface when we talk about the blackface of white power. In this example, it's actually blackface. It's white people in blackface. And this is one of the opening scenes of the movie. And you see here, this Mammy character. Look at this nigga right here. White people in blackface playing black people looked crazy. Looking like a man. I mean, straight up white Tyler Perry vibes. That's crazy. Now this is the scene where the dude's been carrying around the picture of Elsie Stoneman. There were a lot of black extras in the movie, but you'll also have the white people in blackface. And that's actually the most ridiculous aspect of the entire movie. So you'll see an actual colored person, and then you'll see a white person in blackface. And most of the time when they're using a white person in blackface, it's because they're getting more screen time. They're not considered an extra. This is the scene where old boy got put in the hospital, and it just so happens to be at the same hospital where Elsie Stoneman's working. Now remember, Elsie Stoneman is the little chick who he was carrying the picture for. She just happens to be the hospital piccolo player. This bitch is the hospital piccolo player. She's the hospital banjo player, apparently. And so then the nigga's like, so he's like, oh shit. He wakes up. He like, oh shit. Is that the bitch been carrying a picture around this whole time? Like, bitch, I got your picture in my pocket, bitch. I got your picture in my pocket, bitch. You playing the piccolo in the hospital, bitch? Let's go. Bitch, I had your picture in my pocket, bitch. So when he tell the bitch that he got her picture in his pocket, right? And then he pulls the picture out. And then she's looking at the picture. What is she thinking? Is she thinking, man, this shit is romantic as fuck? This nigga been carrying my picture around. Or is she thinking, this nigga creepy as fuck? What is she thinking right now? She's not weirded out. There's no weirdo vibes. Nigga just carrying your picture in his pocket. That's not his girl, by the way. That's not his girl. That's the Stoneman girl? Shit, boy. Can't believe that shit. You know that was thrown off and that nigga pulled that picture out like, this me, nigga? Yeah, man. I've been carrying this shit. And now they gonna hang me? So I think the mama went to Lincoln or Joe Biden, either one of those niggas, and got a pardon for your boy. So he's no longer being hanged. Which means him and Elsie, the picture in your pocket, bitch, they got a chance for love. They got a chance for love now. They show the entire assassination scene of Abraham Lincoln. They got the nigga John Wilkes Booth in the shadows, got his little gun and shit. Basically, they said the nigga who was supposed to be watching the door, he done dipped off to try to watch the play and shit. This is when Wilkes Booth snuck in there. This nigga was trying to see the show. But they clapped that nigga up too. And the nigga jumped down. He was like, Sic semper tyrannis, nigga. Sic semper tyrannis, nigga. They told that nigga Stoneman. Stoneman's like, oh shit. What now? What are we gonna do? They done killed the president. What we gonna do? What we gonna do, Mr. Stoneman? What we gonna do now? The white men were roused by a mere instinct of self-preservation until at last there had sprung into existence a great Ku Klux Klan. And here go this nigga Stoneman and Silas Lynch said, I shall make this man Silas Lynch as a symbol of his race, the peer of any white man living. The peer of any white man living. The nigga Woodrow Wilson like, them niggas can't be our peers. So now after the emancipation you see here, so hey, them niggas is dancing, niggas is run amok. Right, those are actual Negroes in this scene right here. Ain't no blackface because somebody had to dance. I don't know, that one right there in the back, the one clapping, he might be in blackface. The Freedmen's Bureau, the niggers getting free supplies. The charity of a generous North misused to delude the ignorant. Oh, them niggas are getting free supplies. Government whores. This nigga got a hat from the government, my nigga. Now when a white man walks down the street, he's got to watch out. Right here, they all happy, they feeling good and shit. So, boy, watch out, white boy. I'll you up. I'll slap the shit out your ass, boy. And all them niggas was like, ha 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 ha. This nigga Silas gonna come in real quick. This nigga Silas like, hey, this sidewalk belongs to us as much as it does to you, Colonel Cameron. No, this is a white man's sidewalk. This nigga Silas Lynch is the psychopathic mulatto, by the way. As described by the niggas on Wikipedia. There's a bunch of white girl flailing in this movie, man. All the white bitches is like, ooh, ooh, all over the goddamn movie. Flailing ass bitches, boy. I'm talking about them white bitches is flailing all over this bitch. Called that nigga Silas Lynch a traitor to his white patron and a greater traitor to his own people, whom he plans to lead by an evil way to build himself a throne of vaulting power. Money-hungry half-breed. These are legitimate black actors in this scene where it's showing the South Carolina House of Representatives. You see this nigga up front, this nigga sleep. You see these niggas are all riled up. And they looking in like, oh man, look at those niggas, man. They're all rabble-roused. Stoneman's the guest of honor amongst all the niggas. Now you see here Silas Lynch, R.H. Gleaves. He's like, yes, y'all my niggas. So not a lot of whiteface here, authentic Negroes. A lot more authentic Negroes, right? I wonder when this nigga's talking right here, like, what is he saying? Tired of all them ass niggas. Tired of all you ass niggas. What's he saying right there? I'm tired of all them ass niggas. Tired of all them ass niggas. Silas Lynch, the champion of the Negro. So this is the election day scene here. All blacks are given the ballot while the leading whites are disenfranchised. All blacks are given the ballot while the leading whites are disenfranchised. Those damn niggers taking all the votes from the good old whites. This is the scene where the Negroes are stuffing the ballot boxes. Receiving the returns, the Negroes and the carpetbaggers sweep the state. Scallywags were Southerners who supported the Republican Party, and carpetbaggers were Northerners who came to the South to support the Republican Party. Both of these are supposed to be slurs or pejorative terms. So the niggas are celebrating their victory. You can see here that all the white people are afraid now. As soon as Silas Lynch is elected, all of a sudden, the niggas start to go crazy. And that was already actually going crazy before. That boy Silas got elected. Them niggas is out here in the streets talking all kinds of shit to them white boy. White boy, I'll fuck you up. You better get the off the sidewalk, white boy. The riot in the Masters Hall, the Negro Party in control in the State House of Representatives, 101 blacks against 23 whites, session of 1871. An historical facsimile of the House of State Representatives of South Carolina, as it was in 1870, after a photograph by the Columbia State. 101 to 23? All kind of nigga up in that motherfucker, boy. You see these niggas is up here in the damn Masters Hall, acting a damn fool. My nigga getting his little drink on. Niggas doing nigga things, you feel me? Now this nigga took his shoe off. See, that's some old other right there. Now my nigga eating chicken and yelling. You know what I'm saying? See, these niggas is out of control. I understand why they wanted to get the white purity. I mean, look at these niggas. These niggas is out of control. The speaker rules that yes, nigga, y'all gotta wear shoes up in here, bro. It is moved and carried that all whites must salute Negro officers in the streets. Oh, y'all, yes, sir. Hey, white boy, you see me over here, you better motherfucker salute. This nigga Gus he been on one the whole movie, right? He's staring at the little white girl. She's staring at the squirrel and shit. This nigga, what's the name? Flora? This nigga Gus is like, I'm a captain now, bitch. That's what's up, bitch. I'm a captain now. I want to marry you. I see what I want. Let me get that. And she like, no, Gus, no. Commence the chase, bitch. Come here, bitch. Now, this nigga Gus right here is one of the most ridiculous looking niggas throughout the whole movie. She said no, Gus. Now this nigga Gus chasing the bitch through the woods, through the forest, over the hill, and through the woods to grandmama house. He done chased the bitch up a fucking mountain. This bitch like, no, Gus. Leave me alone, Gus. I don't want that. I don't want you. All right, I'm a pure white woman, all right? I'll never let the hands of a dirty Negro touch my milky white skin. Get away, Gus. Get away, Gus. Stay away, Gus, or I'll jump. I have yet to flail. I have yet to flail, Gus. Bitch. Come here, bitch. Let me get some of that. I told you I'm a captain now, bitch. I got benefits. Even if you jump, I can get that cover because, you know, I got benefits, bitch. I'm making a little money, bitch. Your man broke, bitch. What you mean? I said, bitch, you ain't finna jump off no fucking cliff, bitch. Ooh! Ooh! This bitch really jumped. Man, that bitch hit the ground. Damn, bitch, you really jumped. This bitch jumped. Look at that. Waste of a perfectly good bitch. Oh, stupid asshole. Should have gave me some. Your stupid ass would be alive. Just jumped off the mountain. She said, nigga, you will not touch me. I will jump off this cliff, nigga. Back up. Jump off the motherfucking mountain, motherfucker. This bitch said I would rather jump off the cliff than let a nigga touch me. That bitch took her purity very seriously. The sanctity of her coochie to extreme proportions. No, nigga, you will not touch me, nigga. I will jump off this motherfucking cliff before I let you get anywhere close to me. You dirty, dirty nigger. He's like, oh my God, what happened? What happened? The bitch said, the nigger pushed me. The nigger was chasing me through the woods. The nigger was chasing me through the woods. He was wanting my twat, but I ain't letting him have it. I jumped the cliff. I got up there. I got up there and the nigger pushed me. He's like, oh man, these niggers are out of control. We got white bitches jumping off cliffs. Now what the fuck are we supposed to do? I got white bitches jumping off fucking cliffs. And then this motherfucker say, for her who had learned the stern lesson of honor, we should not grieve that she found sweeter the opal gates of death. Now that's some raw shit right there. These motherfuckers is basically saying, better for a bitch to die than to let a nigga touch her. Better for a bitch to jump a motherfucking cliff than get molested by a mangy moon cricket. They wasn't playing about this bitch white purity, bro. Sweeter the opal gates of death. Bitch is going to clan heaven. This nigga Gus is out of control, though. I ain't gonna lie. This nigga Gus is out of control. Townsmen enlisted in the search of the accused Gus that he may be given a fair trial in the dim halls of the invisible empire. That he may be given a fair trial by the invisible empire. Hey man, let's go find Gus so we can try him fairly. All right, let's go. We're gonna get him. I gotta find that damn Gus so we can arrest him and try him fairly, that is. All the black people they just recklessly just fucking with white people all movie. Hey, and this nigga Gus is a fucking menace now. This nigga Gus is a menace. Now, these white boys thought they was tough. They done ran up in a whole house full of niggas. One white boy, listen, he out there, he done whoop every nigga ass in the room. Then he gonna hit this nigga in the head like, yeah. He hit that nigga. You can see that shit. Look at this. He gonna grab the motherfucking bottle or something, that nigga through that chair. So he gonna hit that nigga, hit that nigga right in the head, This nigga thought he was bad too. He's like, oh yeah, come on now. He picked this nigga up. Now he throw him outside and he's sitting down gently now. As far as hard as you hit that nigga with the bottle, he sit that nigga down gently as fuck, right? And then he gets shot in the back. And then he like, Gus, finish him off, Gus. Pow! Like, Gus killed this nigga. This nigga Gus he's like, nigga, I told you, nigga, I'm Gus, bitch. I'm Gus. I'm out of here. You know, that's when you knew Gus was a piece of shit right there. The way he hugged that wall. I don't know what it is. But when he hugged that wall right there, I was like, nah, this nigga Gus is a piece of shit. Said, I seen that nigga, Gus. Where's Gus? I seen that nigga. He said, what happened? It's Gus. It's Gus, man. That nigga Gus is somewhere. He done shot one of the good white boys. This nigga Gus is, these niggas is wild on the horseback. I ain't even gonna lie. This nigga said, hey, I'm gonna get you, Gus. Now, this is the one right here. Before they was just shooting. You know what I'm saying? They was shooting indiscriminately. That nigga slowed down and put that dead eye on that motherfucker. The nigga said, bow, bow, bow. Oh, nah. Slow down, nigga. Slow down. Watch this. Watch this shit right here. Bow. Shot the nigga down. Oh, shit. Oh, let's go get that nigga. That's Gus right there. This nigga Gus trying to get away. Like, nah, we got your bitch ass. We've been looking for you. We about to try you fairly right now, my nigga. You finna get tried fairly. All right, well, where's my attorney? Who's my attorney? I want Silas Lynch as my attorney. Nah, nigga, the bitch, I'm telling you, she jumped. What's the white boy who was there? Nah, the white boy who was there can vouch. That bitch jumped. The bitch jumped, bro. What you want me to do? Now, I did kill the white boy back there at the farm. But y'all trying me for the bitch. This is two different crimes, bro. That bitch is lying. So now they done tried the nigga Gus. They done killed the nigga Gus. And then they take him to Silas Lynch house. With the little KKK and skull and bone shit. That shit was kind of corny. Little KKK skull and bones bullshit. It's like, yeah, we'll cop to this murder. Can you come help me? These niggas is running wild. Can you please help me? Because these niggas is running wild. You see, Silas, he got all the bitches in there. He got the mulatto bitches in there. He chilling. He like, oh shit, I got the white bitch coming through. Also, he had all the bitches at this time. And she like, yeah, you want to help me? Yeah, man, yeah, bitch, let me write this letter real quick, bitch. I'm gonna help you out real quick. Marry me, bitch. No, Silas, no! No! This bitch say, you ain't gonna marry me, bitch? What if I horsewhip your ass then, bitch? What if I do that? What you gonna do about that? What about that? What if I do that? What you gonna do then? And this is where the bitch is like, oh yeah, well if you do that shit, nigga, I'm finna flail all over this motherfucker. I'm finna, like, nah, you don't understand. After I horsewhip you, you finna be my bitch, right? You see all them niggas outside? Those are my niggas. I'm finna build a whole empire full of these niggas. And you gonna be my queen. What you think about that? She's like, no, Silas. No. Nah, look at all them niggas outside. I'll let you run the street now. If you ain't trying to marry me, bitch, I just let you out here in these streets with these niggas now. Damn, let me smell your shirt, bitch. That shit smell good. Damn, he's a sweet smelling bitch. Stop it, Silas. This is straight flailing, boy. Like, nah, come here and sit on my lap, bitch. She's like, no. Uh-oh. Here come the Klan. Thinking Silas like, bitch, you better come here, bitch. No! Here come the Klan. Oh, shit. Y'all gonna make it in time before Silas horsewhips the, makes her his wife? Or the sets her outside loose on the niggas, or sets the niggas loose on her? Whoa. Oh, shit. Oh, bitch. Oh, shit. Her daddy at the door. Oh, fuck. That's her daddy right there? Oh, shit. He at the door right now? What the fuck he doing here? All them niggas outside, he here right now. He probably needs some help. Hold on. What am I gonna do with this bitch right here? Put this bitch in the back room. No. Put this bitch in the back room. Hey, y'all tell this bitch to shut the fuck up. I'm about to go in here and handle this real quick. There, daddy outside. What's up, my nigga? Like, what's going on in here? Shit. I was asleep, my nigga. I was asleep. I want to marry a white woman. Okay, that's cool. That's what's up. Even with all these niggas at your back, you still want to do that? Yeah. And the white girl I want to marry is your daughter. Hold on, nigga. You get the fuck out of my face. Just cause I hang out with niggas sometimes and I might do some nice things for niggas. You can't. No. You are too much nigger for my daughter. The town is given over to crazy niggas brought in by Lynch and Stoneman to overhaul the whites. You're just another nigga looking to overhaul a white, and that white just happens to be my daughter, and I'm not taking it. It's going down. Elsie done woke up. Oh, come here. They got this crazy nigger in here, Silas. And here come the Klan. And the Klan comes and saves the day. And then there's some niggas attacking some innocent white people in the cabin, and the Klan comes and they save these people too. They save the entire white town has been saved from the mangy, wild Negroes who have run amok. The town has been saved thanks to the Ku Klux Klan. Niggas is like, well, hey, it's time to go vote. Hey, it's time to go vote. Oh, look at them white boys over there with them guns and them horses. Oh, I guess we better get her out of here. We better go on home. Them white boys ain't playing. That's the Klan right there. Then Elsie marries the one nigga who's in the Klan and they live happily ever after. They'll say that this movie is part history. Black people were run amok, harassing white people, slapping them in the streets, all kinds of shit, apparently. There's not a lot of documentation about this era in history, but apparently it happened. And this is the movie they caused the resurge in Klan popularity. I'm just in love. Quote, in the decade immediately preceding World War I, a pattern of racial violence began to emerge in which white mob assaults were directed against entire black communities. These race riots were the product of white society's desire to maintain its superiority over blacks, vent its frustrations in the time of distress, and attack those least able to defend themselves. In these race riots, white mobs invaded black neighborhoods, beat and killed large numbers of blacks, and destroyed black property. In most instances, blacks fought back, and there were many casualties on both sides, though most of the dead were black. Gunnar Myrdal opposed the use of the term riots used to describe these interracial conflicts. He preferred to call this phenomena a terrorization or massacre and considered it a magnified or mass lynching. Race riots occurred in both the North and the South, but were more characteristic of the North. They were primarily urban phenomena, while lynching was primarily a rural phenomenon. Although lynchings were decreasing slightly by the turn of the century, race riots were perceptibly on the increase. Large-scale interracial violence became almost epidemic as increasing numbers of blacks migrated to northern cities. The greatest number of race riots occurred during and just after World War I. During this period, the North was concerned with the tremendous migration of blacks from the South and the displacement of some whites by blacks in jobs and residences, which escalated social tensions between the races. The South was concerned about the possible demands of returning Negro soldiers who were unwilling to slip quietly back into second-class citizenship. The summer of 1919, called the Red Summer by James Weldon Johnson, ushered in the greatest period of interracial violence the nation had ever witnessed. During that summer, there were 26 race riots in such cities as Chicago, Washington, D.C., Elaine, Arkansas, Charleston, South Carolina, Knoxville and Nashville, Tennessee, Longville, Texas, and Omaha, Nebraska. Damn, it was wilding in Omaha? More than 100 blacks were killed in these riots, and thousands were wounded and left homeless. The 7 most serious race riots were those which occurred in Wilmington, North Carolina in 1898, Atlanta, Georgia in 1906, Springfield, Illinois in 1908, East St. Louis in 1917, Chicago in 1919, Tulsa, Oklahoma in 1921, and Detroit, Michigan in 1943. What follows is a brief summary of the facts concerning each riot. Just before the turn of the century in November 1898, Wilmington, North Carolina exploded in the first major race riot since Reconstruction. The Wilmington riot followed an impassioned election campaign in which intimidation and fraud brought in a white supremacist government. Plans were drawn up before the election to coerce the black voters and workers and to expel the editor of the black newspaper. 2 days after the election, as whites began to execute their plan, the riot flamed. About 30 blacks were killed in the massacre and many left the city. The white mob suffered no casualties. One of the South's most sensational riots occurred in Atlanta, Georgia in September 1906. For months, the city had been lashed into a fury of race hatred by a movement to disenfranchise blacks. The Atlanta press had begun to treat black crime, especially assault and rape, in an inflammatory fashion. 12 rapes of white women were reported in 1 week, giving the impression that there was an epidemic of black rape. It's always rape. I swear it is. It's always rape. 12 rapes of white women were reported in 1 week, giving the impression that there was an epidemic of black rape. This touched off a riot. White mobs meeting ineffective resistance by police, murdered blacks, destroyed and looted their homes and businesses. Blacks attempted to resist, but were outnumbered. Some blacks were arrested for arming themselves in self-defense. When the 4 days of the rioting ended, 10 blacks and 2 whites were dead. Hundreds were injured, and over 1,000 fled the city. In Springfield, Illinois, during August 1908, a 3-day riot took place initiated by a white woman's claim of violation by a Negro. Why doesn't that surprise anybody?
It was a nigger.
Inflamed by the newspaper sensationalism, crowds of whites gathered around the jail, demanding that the Negro who had been arrested and imprisoned be lynched. When the sheriff transferred the accused and another Negro to a jail in a nearby town, white mobs headed for the Negro section and attacked homes and businesses. 2 blacks were lynched and others were dragged from their houses and streetcars and beaten. By the time the National Guardsmen reached the scene, 6 persons were dead, 4 whites and 2 Negroes. What? 4 whites and 2 Negroes? You mean actually the dead whites outnumbered the Negroes? This riot in the hometown of Abraham Lincoln shocked white liberals who met the following year in New York City with several prominent blacks to form the NAACP. So they're saying that this riot in Springfield, Illinois led to the creation of the NAACP. Think about that.
I'm just
Continuing, the East St. Louis, Illinois riot in 1917 was touched off by the fear of white working men that Negro advances in economic, political, and social status were threatening their own status. All these niggas is getting too highfalutin. All right? If these niggers get stuff, what happens to our stuff? This nigger's got a nicer house than me, and I don't like it. When the labor force of an aluminum plant went on strike in April, the company hired Negro workers. Nigga scabs. Although the strike was crushed by a combination of militia injunctions and both black and white strikebreakers, the union blamed its defeat on the blacks. A union meeting in May demanded that East St. Louis must remain a white man's town. A riot followed, sparked by a white man, during which mobs demolished buildings and blacks were attacked and beaten. Policemen did little more than take the injured to hospitals and disarm Negroes. Harassments and beatings continued through June. On July 1st, some whites in a Ford drove through the main Negro district, shooting into homes. Blacks armed themselves. When a police car, also a Ford, drove down the street to investigate, the blacks fired on it, killing 2 policemen. Okay, that's what they say. The next day, as reports of the shooting spread, a new riot began. Streetcars were stopped, blacks were pulled off, stoned, clubbed, kicked out, and shot. Other rioters set fire to black homes. By midnight, the black section was in flames, and blacks were fleeing the city. The official casualty figures were 9 whites and 39 blacks, hundreds wounded. But the NAACP investigators estimated that between 100 and 200 blacks were killed. Over 300 buildings were destroyed. Continuing, the worst of the post-war race riots took place in Chicago, Illinois. It began in late July 1919 when a young black encroached upon a swimming area that whites had marked off for themselves and was stoned until he drowned. By the time the riot ended 13 days later, thousands of both races had been involved in a series of frays. 15 whites and 23 Negroes were killed, and 178 whites and 342 blacks were injured. More than 1,000 families, mostly blacks, were left homeless due to the burnings and general destruction of property. The Tulsa, Oklahoma riot took place from May 1931 to June 1921. A white girl charged a black youth with attempted rape in an elevator in a public building. Of course!
He was a nigger.
The youth was arrested and imprisoned. Armed blacks came to the jail to protect the accused youth, who it was rumored would be lynched. Altercations between whites and blacks at the jail led to a race war. A mob numbering more than 10,000 attacked the black district. Machine guns were brought into use, 8 airplanes were employed to spy on the movements of Negroes, and according to some, were used in bombing the colored section. 4 companies of the National Guard were called out, but by the time order was restored, 50 whites and between 150 and 200 blacks were killed. Many homes were looted and $1.5 million worth of property was destroyed by fire. The riot in Detroit, Michigan in 1943 flared from the increased racial friction over the sharp rise in the Negro population, which led to competition with whites on the job and housing markets. On June 20th, rioting broke out on Belle Isle, a recreation area used by both races, but predominantly by Negroes. Fistfights escalated into a major conflict. The first wave of looting and bloodshed began in the Black Ghetto, Paradise Valley, and later spread to other sections of the city. White mobs attacked blacks in the downtown area and traveled into black neighborhoods by car, where they were met by sniping. Before the time the federal troops arrived to halt the riot, 25 blacks and 9 whites were killed, and property damage exceeded $2 million. Race riots were caused by a great number of social, political, and economic factors. Joseph Boskin, author of Urban Racial Violence, observed that there were certain general patterns in the major 20th century race riots. 1. In each of the race riots, with few exceptions, it was white people that sparked the incident by attacking black people. 2. In the majority of the riots, some extraordinary social condition prevailed at the time of the riot. Pre-war social changes, wartime mobility, post-war adjustment, or economic depression. 3. The majority of the riots occurred during the hot summer months. I know we always hear the rumors when it gets hot outside, niggas get crazy. Here's an example. Number 4. Rumor played an extremely important role in causing many riots. Yes, the rumor of the white girl being raped by a black guy. Rumors of some criminal activity by blacks against whites perpetrated the actions of white mobs. Number 5, the police force, more than any other institution, was invariably involved as a participating cause or perpetrating factor in the riots. In almost every one of the riots, the police sided with the attackers, either by actually participating in or by failing to quell the attack. These riots indeed were perpetrated by the police, and these rioters were protected by the police. Number 6, in almost every instance, the fighting occurred within the black community. Yes, whites knew they could go to the black community to start bullshit, as opposed to the blacks going into the white community to start bullshit. For one, white people could be the aggressors, and blacks could not be the aggressors. They could only defend themselves. End quote. The Negro Holocaust, Lynching and Race Riots in the United States, 1880 to 1950, by Albert A. Gibson. End quote. After the grandiose popularity of the movie, the KKK rose again on top of Stone Mountain, Georgia. The movie is credited with this resurgence. William Joseph Simmons would take the reins as the new imperial wizard of the new KKK 2.0 reboot. Over the next decade, the membership of the Klan would jump by hundreds of thousands to millions of new members, hitting its peak around 1925, during the same time as the New Negro movement. Simmons, however, was booted out of the Klan in 1922 and tried to form his own faction called the Knights of the Flaming Sword, looking to siphon his membership from the existing Klan body, after feeling he got cheated out of his position by the new leadership, particularly Hiram Evans, a 32nd degree Freemason and a member of the York and Scottish Rite. Hiram Evans had a long history of terroristic abominations, torturous tirades, and Rh negative behavior. He had been killing jits since he was a jit. He was no doubt responsible for an unaccounted number of murders, yet he was the most significant leader in KKK history. Membership under his hood counted in the millions. In July 1923, his face was printed on the cover of Time magazine. His goal was to rebrand the Klan. From the bloodthirsty barbarians of the late 1800s to the family-friendly Aryans of the 1920s. He would not promote violence against minorities in public and emphasized that the old ways of the Klan are done. But privately, he intensely promoted violence against colored people, but also promoted politics by fundraising for Klan members to run for public office. But by this time, the Klan was giving away money to Republicans, which is a complete political change of face. But it wasn't just the Klan changing face, it was American politics overall. Now the Klan is supporting Republicans like Calvin Coolidge, and the Democrats distanced themselves. The Klan rode high in the early to mid 1920s, but this was as high as they would ever ride. Inevitably, they would shrivel because it was in their anatomical nature. Something else inherent in their nature was hypocrisy. For as Christian and morally upright as the Klan claimed to be, under the hood, they were corrupt, murderous, rapist scumbags. And they couldn't hide that fact under a million hoods. Grand Dragon of the Indiana Klan unhooded himself when he raped and murdered Madge Oberholzer. She died after a staph infection she suffered as a result of deep bite wounds made by Stevenson during her drugging by alcohol, abduction, and rape. Stevenson was convicted of second-degree murder. He had expected to use his influence with the Klan and political connections to escape his fate. But when that didn't work, he spilled the beans on all of his corrupt associates, which led to multiple indictments, including the Republican governor, Edward Jackson. Stench ass nigga. This court case caught national headlines and was the primary reason for the mass exodus of Klan members, not just from Indiana, where nearly 200,000 left, but much of the entire American membership ghosted the Klan after the murder conviction of Wizard D.C. Stevenson. At the trial, the prosecutor decreed Stevenson as a destroyer of virtue and womanhood. That's ironic, don't you think? When it comes to the influence of the Freemasons over this era, it was everywhere, on both sides of the conflict that split the country. Many of the top Klansmen were Freemasons, and most of the top colored men were also Freemasons. In a conservative estimate, at least 1/2 to 2/3 of the colored men elected to office in the South were Freemasons, and most of those men had been elevated to prominence through the church. But at this time, white Masons didn't recognize colored Masons, who were usually Prince Hall. So the Freemasonic umbrella didn't keep colored Masons from getting harassed by white Masons in the South, especially if those white Masons were members of the Ku Klux Klan. For as much as the Klan did to suppress the Black Republican vote throughout their heyday, at the height of their popularity, they decided to flip tickets. But at this point, it didn't matter anymore, because the Negroes had already started leaving the Republican Party, especially after white terrorist insurgents in the South, like the White League and the Red Shirts, started murdering colored voters before the 1874 election. In Mississippi, one of the states with the highest population of so-called blacks, the red shirts killed hundreds of colored voters before the election. By 1877, the military had completely withdrawn from the state. As a consequence, colored voters had no more protection from the federal government. Mississippi quickly ratified their state constitution to exclude colored people from office and to set up restrictive barriers to keep them from voting, such as literacy tests and poll taxes. A similar situation had also developed in South Carolina. These were the changes that officially made segregation the law of the land. And these changes were violently enforced by Democrats. And the conditions would stay this way for almost a century. And ironically, it would also be a Democrat, Lyndon B. Johnson, who would end this forced segregation in the South. But did Johnson really even like Negroes? Or did he integrate them into a burning house? On the next episode of Boulè, The Burning House.